So, yesterday, Donald Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act, which I covered on my alt channel, Topical Umbrella. Trump invokes 18th century Alien Enemies Act to declare invasion of Tren de Aragua speed deportations. Claiming the United States has been invaded by a Venezuelan gang, President Donald Trump on Saturday invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a sweeping wartime authority that allows the president broader leeway on policy and execution action to speed up mass deportation of people, potentially pushing his promised crackdown on immigration into higher gear, meaning mass deportations may very well be on the way. Trump's declaration targets Tren de Aragua, contending it is a hostile force acting at the behest of Venezuela's government. The declaration comes the same day that a federal judge in Washington tried barring the administration from deporting 5 Venezuelans under the expected order, a hint at the legal battle brewing over Trump's move. Now, Trump's statement writes, "Over the years, Venezuelan national and local authorities have ceded ever greater control over their territories to transnational criminal organizations." Boy, have they ever. And the result is a hybrid criminal state that is perpetuating an invasion of and predatory incursion into the United States, and which possesses a substantial danger to the United States. Now, they write, the act was last used as part of the internment of Japanese American civilians during World War II and has only been used 2 other times in American history, during World War I and the War of 1812. Trump argued in his declaration that it is justified because he contends that the Tren de Aragua gang, a common talking point on the campaign trail, has ties to the regime of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The Tren de Aragua gang originated in a prison in the South American country and accompanied an exodus of millions of Venezuelans, the overwhelming majority of whom were seeking better living conditions after their nation's economy became undone last decade. Trump and his allies have turned the gang into the face of the alleged threat posed by immigrants, illegal aliens, living in the United States illegally, and formally designated it a foreign terrorist organization last month. So, all of this centers around Trump's deportation agenda having been stymied by a lot of courts who are engaging in judicial activism. The courts have actively stopped and challenged the president's executive power and have tried every which way to slow or even stop the president from getting his illegal immigration agenda going. So, invoking the Alien Enemies Act is a calculated end run around these roadblocks. By doing so, he will bypass the usual immigration courts, all the sanctuary city policies and drawn-out legal battles that have thus far slowed any attempt to begin mass deportation. This move will sidestep the deportation process itself and will move the ballgame into a place where he has much greater unilateral power to act, and judges will have much less power to intervene. In theory, anyway. Now, if you want to watch that video in its entirety, I'll link to it in the description. Anyway, President Trump wasted no time in moving on his invoked Alien Enemies Act. Almost immediately, the administration began to deport hundreds of gang members linked to Tren de Aragua, with planes reportedly in the air by Saturday. That is until the political activist, pretending to be a U.S. district judge, the Obama appointee, James Boasberg, got involved. Just hours after Trump enabled the act, Boasberg issued a temporary restraining order, or TRO, demanding that the Trump administration halt deportations under the act for 14 days. The argument that the judge is enabling here is that the act doesn't apply in this situation, that there is no war with Venezuela, and because invasion traditionally means a military threat, then criminal activity, no matter how bad, no matter how dangerous for you and I or for the country at large, it doesn't really matter. Not only did the judge order his temporary restraining order, but he also ordered Donald Trump to return any planes that might be carrying deportees, meaning while in the air, while the courts sort out the legality of Trump's order. Now, as you can imagine, this didn't sit well with Trump and his team. Donald Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi fired back, saying, "Tonight, a D.C. trial judge supported Tren de Aragua terrorists over the safety of Americans. TDA is represented by the ACLU. This order disregards well-established authority regarding President Trump's power, and it puts the public and law enforcement at risk. The Department of Justice is undeterred in its efforts to work with the White House, the Department of Homeland Security, and all of our partners to stop this invasion and make America safe again." Now, the judge, Boasberg, has long been accused of judicial activism. For example, during the Russia collusion hoax, there was a man named Clinesmith, an ex-FBI lawyer, who pleaded guilty in August of 2020 to altering an email during the Trump-Russia probe, which was part of John Durham's investigation into the FBI Crossfire Hurricane operation. And the email tweak falsely suggested that Carter Page, a Trump campaign advisor, wasn't a CIA source, which helped them get a FISA warrant renewal back in 2017, which allowed them to continue to go after Trump, which eventually led to the attempt to impeach him. Now, in all of that mess, in all of that fraud, he was the only one ever charged for the fake Russia story. And yet, Judge Boasberg sentenced Clinesmith to just 12 months probation, 400 hours of community service, and no jail time. Meanwhile, despite the judge's order, the U.S. managed to still send the first 250 illegal alien gang members to the El Salvador mega prison. Check this out. This is from the New York Post, published by Isabel King. She writes, first 250 plus migrant gang members from U.S. arrived in El Salvador, where they will be held in a notorious mega prison. Welcome to hell, she writes. The U.S. has flown more than 250 accused migrant, illegal alien, gang members to El Salvador, where they will be sent to a notorious mega prison. The flight included 238 members of the Venezuelan prison gang, Tren de Aragua, as well as 23 members of MS-13. They were immediately transferred to a terrorism confinement center, with video showing dozens of heavily armed Salvadoran commandos meeting the plane on the tarmac. Chained migrants, illegal aliens, suspects were forcibly transferred to armored prisons by guards. Yeah, I would imagine they would have to be forcibly transported. Okay. Now, the prison has become internationally famous for its conditions. Inmates are forced to work while incarcerated. Oh, how terrible. They live in overcrowded cells. That sucks. And rival gang members fight to the death over food and water, according to reports over the years. Bukele said El Salvador is committed to, quote, advancing in the fight against organized crime. But this time, we are also helping our allies, making our prison system self-sustainable and obtaining vital intelligence to make our country an even safer place, all in a single action. May God bless El Salvador, and may God bless the United States. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who brokered a deal from El Salvador to house U.S. migrant criminals, thanked him for his assistance and friendship. So, where does this all go from here then? Well, Pam Bondi's Department of Justice has already appealed this temporary restraining order to the D.C. Circuit, seeking an emergency stay. However, that court is a liberal bastion. Their makeup is 7-4 liberal to Republican. And if they uphold Boasberg's ruling, the Trump team will have to try and get the Supreme Court to weigh in on this, which is a 6-3 conservative court. Bondi could try and expedite this with an emergency filing, but at best, you might get a ruling by late March or maybe early April if the court prioritizes it, and that's a big if. Now, in the meantime, it's back to the normal everyday slog of going through the bureaucratic web. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens next.